crazy was when I found out that Party Up was the answer to calling out names.
Facts. And
that's what Drake should have did.
And it was a hit record.
Kurupt killed two of his bodyguards. They're trying to kill him. Killed two of his bodyguards. They blamed it on me because he made a song about me. Even though nobody really heard the song.
So was you an issue actually over her?
Totally.
Oh, so her ex was messing with her when y'all was together?
Kurupt released a diss track called Callin' Out Names in the late 90s, targeting DMX and Foxy Brown. He accused DMX of interfering in his relationship with Foxy. DMX answered just months later with Party Up, turning a hit club track into a strong response.
Dumb whack, you know, being that he made a song about me, I had to be the one doing it. I'm not fucking pissed off at a whack record.
This is what happened when Kurupt picked the wrong fight.
So, you know, when you're grown, you got to put away childish things. You know, I had an issue with DMX.
Right.
And
about some serious shit.
Yeah, we squashed that.
It started in 1999 when Kurupt released a track called Callin' Out Names. The song was exactly what the title said. Kurupt called out multiple rappers, directly, with no censorship. He had issues with several people at the time, but one line made real noise. He rapped, "Foxy got you hot 'cause you kept your face in her lap." The street said that line was aimed at DMX. Before that, Kurupt had been dating Foxy Brown. Their relationship was public. Then they broke up, and not long after, rumors began to spread that Foxy was seeing DMX.
No one knows this, but the reason why Kurupt ever found out anything about DMX having a crush or liking me was through her.
Whether it was serious or not, Kurupt felt disrespected. In his eyes, it crossed a line, and instead of keeping it quiet or handling it one-on-one, he put it in a diss track. By naming names, he made the issue public. DMX did not respond immediately. He stayed quiet for a while. But when he did speak, he used one of the most unexpected methods, a party record. He released Party Up in Here, just a few months later. On the surface, it sounded like a club track. But if you listen closely, it also sounded like a reply. He said, "You'd all gonna make me lose my mind up in here, up in here." To the casual listener, it might not mean much, but to fans who knew the context, it felt like a shot back at Kurupt, without even saying his name. The line became iconic. The song blew up. But for those paying attention, the timing made it clear. DMX had heard the diss and responded in his own way. The beef was now in the open, and what started as a breakup had turned into something much bigger. After Kurupt dropped Callin' Out Names, the tension between him and DMX moved beyond music. It started as a diss, but it was clear there was more going on. Kurupt had been involved with Foxy Brown. They were seen together often, and he had spoken about her in interviews. It was not just a casual relationship, so when things ended between them and rumors began to spread that Foxy was now involved with DMX, Kurupt took it personally.
Issue actually over her?
Totally.
Oh, so her ex was messing with her when y'all was together?
Totally.
Damn.
And I got it.
He believed DMX had crossed a line by getting involved with someone he had just broken up with. That was the core of the issue. It was not just about music or egos. It was about something that felt like a personal betrayal. And instead of keeping it private, Kurupt chose to address it through a diss record. Calling Out Names was blunt. He did not hold back. He called out DMX directly and mentioned Foxy by name. There was no guessing who he was talking about. The track came out in the late 90s, and it quickly made its way through the industry. People listened closely, not just because it was a diss, but because of who was involved. At that time, DMX was at the height of his career. He had already dropped 2 major albums that did extremely well. His name was everywhere, so when Kurupt came for him, the situation got attention. But DMX did not respond in the same way. He did not mention Kurupt in interviews or go on record to explain anything. He stayed quiet publicly. That silence led people to start analyzing his music. Not long after Kurupt's diss, DMX released Party Up in Here, a high-energy track that became one of his biggest hits.
2 questions. How are you dealing with the conflict with Kurupt?
All right, first of all, there is no conflict with Kurupt. You know, so I'm not dealing with anything.
Even though he did not name anyone directly, there were a few lines in that song that some listeners thought could be aimed at Kurupt. One line in particular, "Y'all gon' make me lose my mind," was seen by some fans as a reaction to the drama, even though that was never confirmed. Whether it was intentional or not, the timing of the song made people connect it to the tension with Kurupt. The fact that DMX never addressed it openly only added to that idea. Behind the scenes, people close to both artists started taking sides. It was not a public feud, but there was a quiet split. Some producers and collaborators kept their distance from both, just to avoid being caught in the middle. There were no back and forth diss tracks after that. No major interviews where they aired things out, just distance. Even as the years passed, the issue was never really settled. They did not publicly make peace, but they also never reignited the conflict. It remained what it was, one diss track, one silent response, and a personal issue that played out in the middle of both their careers.
Kurupt, he killed two of his bodyguards. They're trying to kill him. Killed two of his bodyguards. They blamed it on me because he made a song about me. Even though nobody really heard the song.
At the center of the whole tension was Foxy Brown. Kurupt and Foxy had a real relationship in the late 90s. It was not a rumor. He confirmed it himself during interviews, saying they were engaged at one point. People in the industry knew they were together, and they appeared in public as a couple. This was not something private, but the relationship ended. And not long after, there were talks that Foxy had started spending time with DMX. The details were never fully clear. No photos, no official confirmation. But the rumors stuck around. Kurupt believed something happened between them while he and Foxy were still close. That was his reason for calling out both of them and calling out names. The way he saw it, someone he had trusted got involved with someone he used to be with. And instead of keeping it private, he went to the studio and recorded it. In one interview years later, Kurupt explained why he mentioned DMX. He said it was about respect. In his view, DMX should have kept some space, especially since they were on the same scene and had mutual respect in music. To him, it felt like a boundary was crossed. Foxy Brown never publicly explained what happened. She did not respond to the song. She did not address Kurupt's comments in interviews. DMX also kept quiet. Neither one of them added more to the situation publicly, which left people to draw their own conclusions. Some people said the whole thing might have been based on misunderstanding. Others believed it was deeper. But since none of them came out to clear it up, the story stayed as it was. One side told, and the others silent. The personal fallout between Kurupt and Foxy was never repaired in public. Whatever happened between them was left in the past. By the early 2000s, both had moved on. Foxy focused on her career and other relationships. Kurupt stayed active in music and eventually stopped talking about the issue altogether. It was a moment that showed how personal issues could spill into music. And once it was in a track, it became part of hip-hop history, even if the full truth behind it was never fully explained. After calling out names dropped, things stayed quiet between Kurupt and DMX for a while. There was no public response from DMX at first, no diss track, no interview, no back and forth. But a few months later, DMX released Party Up, Up in Here. On the surface, it sounded like a club record, high energy, big hooks. But when people listened closely, they noticed lines that seemed aimed at Kurupt, especially one in particular.
Your favorite diss track of all time?
Mine's?
That's different.
Mine was DMX. What he did to Kurupt. You know I like Kurupt, but the way DMX decipher, like he deciphered him.
You all gonna make me lose my mind, up in here, up in here. Later in the song, DMX rapped, "If it was not for the Bronx, this rap-s probably never would be going on. So tell me where you're from?"
From, like he said, you're gonna be staring at the rooftop. Like, damn, of the church. I said, damn, he described a painted picture of how he would murder and you know what I'm saying? And your people telling the truth and it hurts. Damn, DMX, do you really gotta do him like that? You know? So DMX is one of my, you know what I'm saying, to Kurupt.
That part was seen by some as general, but when he got to the line, "You whack, you twisted, your girl's a you broke, the kids are not yours, and everybody knows. Your old man said you stupid, you be like, so? I love my baby mother, I never let her go." Fans and writers started connecting dots. Some believed DMX was responding to what Kurupt said about Foxy Brown, especially the "your girl's a hoe" line, which seemed like a direct mirror of what Kurupt had accused him of. Even though DMX never confirmed who those lyrics were about, the timing and content made people believe it was an answer. Instead of dropping a diss track in the traditional way, DMX put his response in one of his biggest singles. The track was a hit, but underneath the success was a personal message. Kurupt never replied publicly. The issue seemed to fade after that. Some fans think DMX chose to end the situation his way, indirectly, but clearly. Foxy Brown was not just a rapper in the mix. She had strong ties to both men in this situation. In the late 90s, she was in a public relationship with Kurupt. The two were engaged. This was not a rumor. They confirmed it during interviews. Foxy was seen with Kurupt at shows, on red carpets, and in the studio. There were pictures and footage. Their relationship was serious. But things started to fall apart. The reasons are not fully documented, but they eventually broke up. Around that same time, people began to talk about Foxy being seen with DMX. Some reports claimed that she and DMX were romantically involved. Others said it was more casual or temporary. Either way, people close to the scene were aware of the connection between Foxy and DMX. This was not a small thing to Kurupt. He felt it deeply. He was not just reacting to rap competition. He was reacting to something that touched his personal life. And he brought all of that emotion into a song called "Callin' Out Names." In that track, Kurupt did not hold back. He mentioned several rappers by name, but one line clearly referred to DMX and Foxy. Kurupt said that Foxy had moved from one man to another in the same circle. That was how he saw it, and he said it in plain words. It did not matter to him that the breakup had already happened. He still felt it crossed a line. The song made its way across the industry fast. At the time, dissing people by name in a track was still considered a serious move. Kurupt had taken what was private and made it public. And the fact that DMX was one of the targets meant the situation could easily grow into something bigger. Foxy never responded publicly to the diss. DMX never directly addressed it either. But everyone involved knew what was said, and the people around them paid close attention. This was not just about disrespect, it was about personal emotions and real relationships. Kurupt was hurt, and instead of keeping it private, he said everything he felt in the booth. That track was not meant to start a lyrical war. It was a personal statement. The tension between Kurupt and DMX did not start over music. It started over a woman they both had ties to. Kurupt had been engaged to Foxy Brown. It was not just a casual relationship. They were serious. That was clear from the way they showed up together at events and from how Kurupt spoke about her in interviews.
It was over your ex? Or what was, is that what it was?
Yeah, you know, it was, I was in my feelings. And I was really just upset the whole experience with this young lady.
But after they broke up, the talk shifted. Foxy was seen spending time with DMX. There were no official statements confirming anything, but enough people witnessed the interaction to believe something was happening between them. To outsiders, it looked like Foxy had moved on. But to Kurupt, it felt like a violation. He and DMX were not close friends, but they worked in the same industry. They had crossed paths. There was a level of respect between them. That respect, in Kurupt's eyes, was broken when Foxy started spending time with DMX. This is where the issue got personal. It was no longer about competition in the rap world. It was about loyalty and boundaries. Kurupt saw DMX's involvement with Foxy as a move that crossed a line. And instead of handling it behind the scenes, he chose to speak about it publicly through a diss track. Calling Out Names was not just a diss song. It was a way for Kurupt to release everything he was feeling. He put names in the song. He put his emotions in the verses. It was not coded or subtle. He said what he felt directly. At the same time, DMX was already moving through his own challenges. He did not respond with a direct diss track. But when Party Up came out, some people believed the energy and tone of the track were aimed at Kurupt. There was no name mentioned, but the frustration in the lyrics made fans wonder if it was a response. What makes this moment stand out is how personal it was. There was no real battle on wax. There was no staged beef. There was just one man feeling betrayed and another choosing not to respond directly. In later interviews, Kurupt admitted that he was going through a lot at the time. That adds context to why he reacted the way he did. Over time, the situation faded. No further diss tracks were made. No physical fights happened. They stayed away from each other and never collaborated again. But the moment left a mark. People who knew about the backstory understood why it mattered. It was not about clout. It was about real-life emotions spilling into the music. After both songs made their rounds, Kurupt's Calling Out Names and DMX's Party Up, neither of them dropped another diss track directly aimed at each other. And that said a lot. There was no back-and-forth war in the media. No interviews where they kept dragging each other. It just stopped. Some fans believed that DMX's response had been enough. Others thought Kurupt realized it was not worth dragging on. And since both men were part of the same circles, same studios, same crews, it would have been easy for someone to step in and say, "Leave it alone." Also, by the early 2000s, they had both moved on with their careers. DMX was doing movies and touring. Kurupt had other projects with Thaw Dog Pound and solo albums. At no point did they do a public sit-down to squash it, but they also never reignited anything. It just faded. By the time the story came up in interviews years later, it was usually brushed off. Kurupt even said in one video that he was not proud of going that route and naming names. He said he was young, emotional, and dealing with personal stuff. DMX never went deep into it again. He spoke about a lot of beef over the years, but this one was rarely mentioned. So, while it started loud, it ended quietly. No reunion, no apology track, just silence.
He passed away earlier this year.
Yeah.
It was over your ex? Or what was, is that what it was?
Yeah, you know, it was, I was in my feelings.
Years after the whole situation, Kurupt was asked about calling out names in interviews, and by then, his tone had changed. He said that making the diss track was not something he was proud of. In one interview, he explained that he was going through a rough time personally, and that he let his emotions take over. He admitted that naming specific people, especially DMX, was not the smartest move.
The reality of it is that we did squash our situation and became real good friends.
Kurupt also said the song was never really about trying to start a rap beef. It came more from personal frustration. He had been in a relationship with Foxy Brown, and he felt disrespected. At that moment, instead of talking it out or leaving it alone, he put it in a song. He later said he had nothing against DMX as a person. In fact, he made it clear he respected him as an artist. According to Kurupt, they never had a personal fight or face-to-face argument about it. It was just something that happened through the music, and then passed. In some of those interviews, Kurupt also mentioned how much things had changed since then. He was older, more reflective, and not interested in going down that road again. He even said that if he could go back, he might have handled it differently. So while calling out names is still remembered as a raw moment in late 90s rap, Kurupt made it clear years later he had moved on from it. In the end, what started as a personal issue between Kurupt and Foxy Brown turned into a moment that pulled DMX into the spotlight of a diss track. Calling out names was direct and emotional, but DMX never responded with the same kind of diss. He let Party Up speak for him, and many saw it as his way of setting the record straight without getting pulled into a back and forth. Over time, both artists moved on. There was no public fallout, no real street drama, just one of those moments in rap history where emotions spilled into music. And years later, Kurupt looked back with a clearer mind, saying he would have done things differently. The tension came and went, but what stayed was the music, and the reminder that even in hip-hop, some battles are more personal than public. That will be all for now. Goodbye.